Welcome to the relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. More on Caroline Dubois' desire to get Mikaela Mayer in the ring. A clash with Mikaela is 100% on her radar, but is it on Mikaela's radar?
I don't think so.
You will have already heard me say that before. Promoter Ben Shalom of Boxer is willing to match Dubois against Mayer as early as this year. Dubois admits that she views Mayer as a pioneer for women's boxing. I've watched her since she turned pro. I was watching her after the Olympics in 2016. I watched pretty much every fight of hers, Dubois said to Sky Sports. It's amazing to see how she's done and how she's helped progress the sport. She moved up to my division, so she's competition now. She just isn't somebody that I can look up to. She's competition.
I don't think that's how Mikaela looks at it.
Not necessarily that she's in competition with Caroline. No, likely Mikaela feels that they're in very different places in their careers. And for Mikaela, it wouldn't make any sense spending time on Caroline, who's just getting started, whereas Mikaela likely wants established names and established fighters, like Katie Taylor, maybe Natasha Jonas.
She wants belt holders. She wants champions. She wants big fights.
Caroline wants her 100%. That's what I want, Dubois said. That's what I've always wanted. Mikaela Mayer and me, we can sell out the O2 Arena again. It's going to be amazing. Dubois is hoping to go for a world title this year, but that scenario will depend on what happens with the fall rematch between undisputed lightweight champion Katie Taylor and undisputed super lightweight champion Chantel Kimran. At this point in her career, Taylor could very well vacate one or two belts to pursue more lucrative avenues I'll be pushing for to secure a world title fight. I think Katie Taylor goes and fights at 140.
It's exactly what she means to do. Word around the campfire is the rematch with Chantel will once again take place at 140.
Katie Taylor has reigned as the lightweight division's undisputed champion for approximately four going on 5 years now, as of 2019.
7 defenses of the undisputed crown since becoming undisputed champion. 7.
Now, at this point in her career, Taylor could very well vacate one or two belts to pursue more lucrative avenues. I'll be pushing to secure a world title fight. I think if Katie Taylor goes and fights at 140 or fights Amanda Serrano, she's going to have to vacate, and if the belts are vacated, then I'll be ready to snatch them up.
Mikaela Mayer is in position to either challenge Katie for the WBC title or pick it up should it become vacant. And I think at lightweight, that's Mikaela Mayer's focus, not Caroline Dubois.
By way of both the WBC and IBF, Mikaela Mayer is in a pole position. She's ranked number 1 with the World Boxing Council and number 1 with the International Boxing Federation.
Caroline Dubois is all the way down there at number 7 in the IBF's ranked standings.
So you figure that if something happens and either the WBC or the IBF or both alphabet titles go vacant, Mikaela is in a pole position to pick them up.
And it looks like she wouldn't have to fight Caroline Dubois.
In the IBF's last updated set of ranked standings, Argentina's Yanina Lescano is ranked at number 2. Yanina, she just suffered a one-sided loss to Caroline Dubois, so surely that would have gained Caroline some ground.
We'll see how much when the IBF updates their ranks.
By way of the WBA, Mayra Moneo of Uruguay is ranked at number 1. Caroline Dubois ranked all the way down there at number 6.
Mayra Moneo should become a person of interest to Caroline Dubois because she's ranked at number 1 by way of the WBA and the WBO. So if she can't get Mikaela Mayer to give her the time of day, if she can't get her in the ring, I suggest she go after Mayra Moneo.
Mayra Moneo of Uruguay, who you can find in the ranked standings of all 4 alphabet organizations, sporting a professional record of 13 wins with just 1 loss, no draws, 3 knockouts.
In action just a few days ago on the 1st of this month, scoring an 8th round TKO stoppage over Elise Sanchez.
Ranked number 1 by way of both the WBA and the WBO. A sensible step-up fight for Caroline Dubois, a step up from Yanina Lescano.
You know, I don't think that Caroline is about to get Mikaela in the ring, but she might have more luck with Mayra Moneo. They can make her an offer.
I'm sure that Mayra Moneo would be receptive to it. Not just Mayra, there is also Kazakhstan's own Firuza Sharapovia, who's supposed to be in action very soon. She would serve as a common opponent between Caroline Dubois and Katie Taylor. There are enough solid fights and solid fighters to go around in the women's lightweight division without Caroline barking up the wrong tree, chasing Michaela.
Michaela's not going to fight her. In the absence of a belt or a big purse, she won't do it.
But these fighters might. Maida Monel, Firuza Sharapova, Karen Carabajal, who would service as yet another common opponent between Caroline Dubois and Katie Taylor.
These are the fights that I think Caroline should go after in the mean-in-between time because they're a lot more realistic.
Men's lightweight news, which should come as a surprise to no one. Isaac promises to impress against Giovanni Cabrera to get Gervonta Davis rematch. He's turned down a lot of fights, and I mean a lot of fights. He was offered.
Golden Boy Promotions offered him something like $1 million to box Ryan Garcia. Michelle Rivera, his PBC stablemate, wanted to fight him. And of course, the WBC, they ordered him to fight Shakur Stevenson, and he walked away.
What is intended to be the PBC's gateway into the hearts and minds of the Mexican fight fans, the back-to-back electrifying KOs have earned Cruz another showcase fight on pay-per-view as the Mexico City-based lightweight named Pitbull will fight Giovanni Cabrera July 29th as the co-main event for Spence versus Crawford. I'm really excited to win this fight so I can get to the next level of what I want to achieve. Giovanni is a quality fighter and he's undefeated for a reason. I'm definitely not overlooking him because he's earned this shot, Cruz said during a recent discussion with reporters. I'm training as hard as I can and zeroing in on Giovanni Cabrera's strengths and weaknesses. It's an honor to be the co-main event of a fight that will be remembered forever in boxing lore.
The strategy for Isaac Cruz up until this point has been to conceal him behind 10 feet of bubble wrap long enough that maybe he can get a Davis rematch or maybe he can pick up a vacant title. Should Devin Haney move up in weight,
the titles will go vacant and be subsequently redistributed, at which point Isaac can emerge from the shadows and pick one up, having avoided all risks in the last 12 months or so, because since having fought Gervonta Davis, he's been in nothing but showcase fights.
Showcase fights for over a year.
My plan is to go out there and put on a show for everyone watching. I'll be ready. 1 round or 12 rounds, however long it lasts. It's going to be a great fight. The 5'4", 25-year-old Cruz wants to catapult himself and get another crack at Davis following their spirited slugfest. From Davis' 29's career fights, only 2 opponents made it to the final bell, and Cruz was one of them. They've been milking that cow ever since. Gervonta Davis is in possession of a secondary version of Devin Haney's WBA title. He first picked it up in 2019, long before Devin Haney became WBA champion, full WBA champion. And it's not Gervonta's.
It's not his intention to corner a fight with Devin. It's not Isaac's intention either.
I'm here to show everyone that I'm no social media fighter like some others are, likely referencing Ryan Garcia. I'm a dog, I'm a warrior, and my ceiling is not even close to being hit yet.
He's taken shots at Ryan, but he's the one who turned him down. At least his team was.
Was well over a year ago. After the Gervonta Davis fight, Golden Boy Promotions decided they wanted to put Ryan in the ring with Isaac, based on how Isaac performed, and his team was not receptive to their offer. They were standing on their square as if they were the A-side to Ryan Garcia. That could have been a very big fight for Isaac, and in truth, maybe he would have beat Ryan.
Maybe.
Sean Gibbons' whole stance on the whole thing, Sean Gibbons, who handles the career of Isaac Cruz, he made it about sides of the street. He made it about which platform the fight would take place.
Though surely boxing Ryan Garcia and potentially beating him would have done a lot more for Isaac Cruz's profile than the fights that he has been having, those 2 showcase fights.
And the one that he's about to have with Giovanni Cabrera, who is a former Manny Pacquiao sparring partner who last scored a shutout decision win over Gabriel Flores, who also beat Rene Tellez-Garon as part of a 3-win streak 2022 campaign. He may think he's faced fighters like me in the gym, but he better be ready, because facing the real thing is a lot different, said Cruz. The fans are going to give me extra motivation. I want to keep giving them spectacular fights. It fills me with joy and pride to see their support. I promise every single fan that this fight is going to be worth the price of admission.
From the moment that he lost that decision to Gervonta Davis, the focus has been preserving Isaac Cruz and putting him in winnable fights long enough to see him have a rematch with Gervonta. And I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Gervonta give him that rematch once he serves out his sentence.
I think he still has a little over a month left to serve out. Remember that he was on house arrest, but he violated the terms of that house arrest, and now he's in the clink. It's been all about preservation for Isaac. No more and no less. Rejecting a lot of more high-profile fights than the fights that he has been having. More difficult fights as well. The Shakur Stevenson fight almost immediately comes to mind. I don't think enough is said that the WBC actually ordered that thing. And the profile of that fight would have been a lot bigger than the profile of any fight Isaac has had since losing to Gervonta Davis. He was allowed to walk away from that fight without being lambasted for it.
That was a stone cold duck.
That's what that was. I don't want to hear about sides of the street or the politics of boxing because another PBC fighter in Stephen Fulton did whatever he had to do to box Naoya Inoue. And that's what he's going to do the same week as Spence versus Crawford. So I don't want to hear about sides of the street when it comes to Isaac and Shakur. Isaac either wanted to fight or he didn't want to fight. And what I see is he didn't want to fight.
He didn't want to know.
Gervonta Davis, if he fights Isaac for a second time in the fall, is likely to see a sharp decline in the buy rate of his next box office fight because Isaac ain't Ryan Garcia. He's not as popular. His social media presence isn't as felt.
For better or worse, that's a big part of why Ryan is so well known.
More well known than Isaac. A second fight with Isaac for Gervonta will likely bring in more buys than the first fight did. More buys because the first fight, Isaac was a late replacement. Nobody knew him.
The second fight might do better at the box office than the first fight did, but it won't do anywhere near as much as the Ryan Garcia fight.
Which would in effect prove who the real driving force for all those buys was. Gervonta Davis, having been on pay-per-view 5 times before boxing Ryan, he never came close to cracking 1 million buys. You add Ryan,
You see what the numbers were.
now take Ryan out of the equation and stage a rematch that nobody is really clamoring for.
They never released the numbers for the first Isaac Cruz fight, likely because of how bad they were.
Not even a ballpark figure. The second fight might do somewhere in the neighborhood of 200, maybe 300,000, maybe.
Somewhere in between.
But it ain't gonna do 1 million buys, I can tell you that.
Of that I'm sure of.
Finally, several divisions north of lightweight at super middle, Timothy Bradley says if Jermell Charlo can pull off the upset, he cements himself as a pound-for-pound guy.
Jermell Charlo has graced the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list for at least 2 or 3 years now since procuring 3 of the 4 major titles.
Jermell, who is widely viewed as the more talented of the two brothers, Jermell and Jermall, stepped up to the plate to take the fight. I personally think this fight is a mismatch. I still think it does astronomical numbers because it's Canelo Alvarez, and he's the face.
And he's facing an African-American fighter.
If anybody's banking on Charlo to knock Canelo out, you can wish that goodbye, because Canelo has one of the best chins in all of boxing, Bradley told FightHype.com. It's going to be a tall ask for Charlo, but if someone pulls this off, wow, because he would cement himself as one of the pound-for-pound guys of today.
Jermell Charlo's pound-for-pound status by way of more popular periodicals has been subject to some debate. I mean, Ring Magazine and ESPN, they've gone as far as listing Vasyl Lomachenko.
Even after Teofimo Lopez beat him in late 2020, they've gone as far as listing Vasyl Lomachenko as a pound-for-pound fighter, but they haven't really kept the same energy when it comes to Jermell, even though Jermell, that same year, became an undisputed champion. I've seen it
said in some circles that the talent level at junior middleweight, while entertaining to watch,
it's about even across the board, that there's nothing really spectacular about the guys that Jermell has been fighting, and I don't agree with such criticisms and critiques. I think that Jermell very much is a pound-for-pound fighter and have ranked him as such based on the governing criteria for the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list. For the last 3 years, he's been in those ranks.
sometimes in the lower tier, but he's been there.
Signature wins over Gabriel Rosario, John Jackson, Charles Hatley, Erickson Lubian.
Knocked him out in a matter of seconds.
His revenge win over then-champion Tony Harrison, who gave Jermell his first professional loss. He repaid Tony in kind by stopping him in the rematch and stopping Jason Rosario for 2 of the 4 major titles at this weight, and got the last one from Brian Castano in their rematch. I think Jermell has earned his spot.
Being honest with you, I actually like the Canelo Alvarez fight.
They're twin brothers, you understand, Jermell and Jermall, but they're not the same person, and it's important to understand that Jermall, for Canelo Alvarez, That's a lighter touch, but Jermell, who I view as being more accomplished and somewhat more ambitious.
He is more ambitious. He's undisputed.
Ring Magazine and lineal champion, having beaten 3 alphabet champions, 3 champions apiece, en route to becoming the authority at junior middleweight, now striving to become the authority at super middleweight.
With Canelo.
For me and my money, this is a much better fight with a much better fighter than the Charlo fight would have been. Jermell is the better one of the two, even if he's been out a long while, given his physical dimensions, that he will have a height advantage over Canelo, a reach advantage over Canelo. He won't be boiling down to 154, so he won't be depleted.
Remember, Jermell Charlo hasn't fought in over a year. Making 154 pounds for what would have been the Tim Tszyu fight, that might have been a very hard cut for Jermell, but now that he doesn't have to do that he's going to be fighting at 168 instead.
It's a much easier weight for Jermell to make under these circumstances. His shot selection, his piston jab, and his movement. I think he can give Canelo an interesting fight, though some stout observations from Tim Bradley.
They resonate.
Just doesn't seem likely that Jermell stops Canelo Alvarez. Canelo has fought some big punchers, some interesting punchers, perhaps more interesting even than Jermell Charlo. I mean, Miguel Cotto, in spite of his small frame, he was always a big puncher, and so was Gennady Golovkin. Canelo fought him 3 times and never got knocked down, never got knocked out.
Daniel Jacobs could punch. Daniel Jacobs was a knockout merchant.
That Canelo Alvarez has regularly fought fighters that have height advantages and reach advantages, some strong punchers, anywhere in between 154 to 175, and he's never been knocked down or knocked out.
Tim is right. Canelo Alvarez has proven to have a world-class chin.
Jermell knocking him out, it doesn't seem likely, but maybe he can give him a fight. The caveat is, while Jermell won't have to kill himself boiling down to 154, he'll fight at 168. How is he going to carry the weight? That's more weight than he's accustomed to carrying into a fight.
He's not acclimated to super middle. Canelo is.
In spite of his height advantage and his reach advantage, and being in some ways the fresher fighter of the two, he's also the less active fighter of the two, and I'd wager Canelo's the stronger puncher.
More durable fighter.
Canelo's got a lot of fights that amass wear and tear over time. I don't think Jermell has the same level of wear and tear that Canelo does, but Canelo still seems to me to be the more durable fighter of the two, the stronger fighter of the two. And it's an interesting matchup. A few boo birds and critics aside, I actually like this fight.
Because even though Canelo Alvarez campaigns at higher weights than Jermell, he's not exactly the naturally bigger man, not really.
I think it's going to be an interesting fight, I do.